the call for and the demand on our caring nature can be overwhelming. I bet you receive by mail or phone no less than 6 asks a week, probably right during dinner. I am sure that many of them appeal to your compassion, to your sensibilities, and to your call to be caring persons. Teresa of Avila said, "God has no hands, feet, or voice except ours, and through these, God works." Now, as Unitarian Universalists, these sentiments have meaning, though we would, no doubt, interpret them differently. We get that there is not some deity moving people, events, hands, and feet around, controlling and directing this world or its inhabitants. Yet we get that it is by our individual and communal actions that caring becomes real. And at the same time, coming into a year of living in a COVID pandemic world, compassion fatigue is real. In fact, fatigue in general is all too real. The ongoingness of the pandemic living takes a tremendous amount of energy. Getting kids ready for school, whether it be at home or hybrid model, not seeing children, grandchildren, parents, friends, and church members, and watching the suffering and struggles is exacting a toll on our ability to stay connected. And without staying connected, well, for me anyways, I am at risk of losing compassion. And without compassion, there is no beloved community. And yet, after some restorative time or some bonding time, such as a walk at the Great Bay National Park with others, the ability to connect is once again renewed. Now, I think of compassion as a muscle that needs to be exercised and maintained. And I see that being done here at South Church. For example, offering quarantine housing for an immigrant who is at risk of being isolated and worse has happened not just once, but 3 times. And the number of you who volunteered not only at the church, but by staying in touch with our guests, that's impressive. I see it in our pastoral associates who have had to pivot in enormous ways during COVID world, but who each week check in to see who needs some caring made real. Phone call, a card, an email message, a compassionate care package, and the knitting ministry who keep us in prayer shawls and yearn for the day when they can place a shawl lovingly across the shoulders of a grieving friend. All these acts and hundreds more ways of giving time, energy, and attention demonstrate that we are attempting to build a loving community. Now, my parents were of the opinion that compassion was something that could be developed, and I was strongly encouraged to find some way to volunteer. I had entertained a fantasy of going into the healthcare field. In fact, I thought I might want to become a medical technologist and work with germs and bacteria and virus. So when the opportunity to become part of a pilot volunteer program as a candy striper came up, I applied and was accepted. I doubt this program even exists any longer, or maybe some of you even know what a candy striper was, but it was great. Now, the name Candy Striper came about because we wore pink and white striped pinafore aprons over white shirts and skirts. We were not allowed to wear pants. Our role was to go around to the patients, deliver mail, flowers, refill water pitchers, get extra pillows, bring mid-afternoon Jell-O or ice cream, plump a pillow, clean up a bedside space, do anything that we could to let that patient know that they were cared for and thought of. I loved this volunteer job. It helped me to build my compassion muscle. And it also let me know that the field of medicine was not quite my thing. However educational and exciting it was, my calling was elsewhere. But through opportunities like this, I came to learn a lot about what is called the theological theory of works as saving grace. During this past year, Alice O'Trainer discovered that South Church and First Church in Leominster, where I serve, shared a minister, the Reverend John Papanger. While there, I came across a sermon in which John Papanger proposed that the book of James is the Unitarian's true gospel. He said that the gospel, meaning good news, from the book of James in the New Testament clearly demonstrated that wholeness, holiness, and salvation come about through the activities and the duties, the good works that one does in their life. Salvation by works. Now, this is one of those distinctions between Unitarian, Universalist, and the other Christian-based religions. They believe that salvation is by grace. Simply stated, salvation by grace is that God, and God alone, knows and determines who is saved and who is not, and no amount of good work can influence this preordained outcome. However, they did believe that if one is among the saved, they will naturally do good works. I want to tell you, I am of the opinion that at their core, these teachings are classist, racist, oppressive, and they foster an attitude of arrogance, superiority, and exceptionalism that furthers the divisiveness of the haves, the have-nots, the saved, the not. And these beliefs contribute to the colonialist, oppressive perspective of offering assistance not out of true compassion or solidarity, but out of an exaggerated sense that the receiver needs and will be grateful to me for the handout. These attitudes don't contribute to making caring real or to building a beloved community. I try to make caring real because it affects the quality of my life in the here and now and not in some imagined afterlife. And also, I believe that the use of talents and gifts, resources and skills do and can make a difference. It is through our actions that we demonstrate a commitment to be building a beloved community. Dorothy Day reminds us that good deeds are like pebbles cast in a pond. They create ripples that spread out in all directions, making a widening circle of compassion. And our call to care comes from our natural compassion and desire to help. And it is up to us to exercise caring and actualize compassion and solidarity and love. Now, the Eastern religions would tell us that making caring real is part of our Dharma. Now, at the risk of simplifying the concept of Dharma, let me offer that it has two concepts that are helpful to understand. Dharma is first of all the teachings, principles from the Buddha. And second, it is how we live out and put those principles into practice. Now today I invite us to think about the manifestation of these teachings as a way to discover our purpose for existence. Yeah, most of us wrestle with that question at one time or another when we ask, why am I here? What am I supposed to do with this wild and crazy life, and does it matter? Now I have come to understand that we and our purpose is to serve others by using all of our gifts, resources that we have and that we can develop, and as well to evolve in our own spirituality using gifts, skills, resources that we have and we can develop. Our call to care comes from our natural desire to help, and how we exercise caring is a way to discover our purpose. And when we respond to the deep desire to give, it brings us out of ourselves. It expands our world. It puts our own troubles in perspective. It unites the world. It gathers up all the scatteredness of individuals and renews the unity of life. Within Judaism, there is a teaching about the scattered sparks of creation. This teaching says that there are sparks of holiness that yearn to be set free and then be reunited with their source, and that this happens through human action. When we return something to its proper place, to where it belongs, where it was meant to be, when we use something in a sacred way for a holy person, when we treat another human being as the precious being they are, those captive sparks are released, the cosmos is healed. And this liberation of life is called the repair of creation. Now imagine a store that sells everything. You walk in, and on display you see world peace, no violence, no guns, no hunger, no homelessness, no economic deprivation, no environmental destruction, no racism. You want to make a purchase, but when you approach the checkout, you are given only a seed packet and told that the seeds need to be planted, nourished, tended, and watered by you. How would you respond? Well, many of us would run out of there or back out of there real quickly, leave the purchase, too overwhelmed to know what to do. My hope is that even if you were inclined to run, you would instead stop by this Unitarian Universalist church to ask what tools and skills are available so that together we could plant and nurture and harvest the seeds. Each of you cares and cares deeply. You empathize, you have compassion, you understand the I put you there, you are the feet, the legs, and voice part. But I suspect sometimes it's very overwhelming. So what do? Well, first, you begin by making reasoned decisions about your resources of time and money. And then you give to those projects and become part of the projects that nurture your spiritual needs, those that answer a deep, abiding concern that you have, or relieve a fear that you strongly identify with. Now, when did you last see caring become real? When did you last see the impossible done? That answer will help you to know how to make caring real. Now, Jesus's model for human purpose is not all that different from the Buddhist concept of Dharma. Jesus taught that the purpose of life is to confront and sustain one another, to lift the burdens of oppression, and to develop our spirit by serving with joy. Jesus' teachings also remind me that the way to wholeness is like this thought from the book of Matthew. When Jesus says, you will inherit the kingdom of God because when I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you welcomed me. I was naked, you clothed me, and I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. But they said, well, when did we see you hungry, or feed thee, or visit thee, or thirsty, or give thee a drink? And when did we see you a stranger, and welcome thee, naked, and clothe thee? And the answer was, truly I say to you, as you did this to anyone, you did it to me. As you did this to anyone, you did it to me. You helped to heal the world by doing and caring and being and acting in ways that are love. Now, the ethical paradox about making caring real that many point out is that by giving we shall receive, by becoming empty we shall be filled, by losing ourselves we shall be found, and the work of justice making or making caring real is the work of healing. And when we lose ourselves in the work, it brings greater rewards than we can ever imagine. That reward, a beloved community. So get active, do the things, get involved in church, share projects, pool energies, build a church community where both inner and spiritual life is nurtured, where then we can go out and offer care to the wider world. Now, a church has two distinct tensions One is to remain conservative, conserve that institution, the building, position, place in the larger community, and the other is to protest. That's where the term Protestant comes from. It means to move, shake, modify, transform, confront the systems that may hinder the fullness of living. When caring becomes real within a religious framework, the ability to discern the timing of when to conserve and when to protest can become clear. And it is then that a sacred and beloved community can become a safe place to try out new ways of thinking and being within a structure based on honest and sincere sharing, with accountability and transparency to help us know when to modify or change our approaches, and also where we can be offered affirmation when heading in good direction, all the while learning to fulfill our life's purpose in service while growing spiritually. And when caring becomes real, we will know the full extent of our gifts, skills, strengths, and talents. And though we will bump up against our limitations and shortcomings and growing edges, we will become authentic, compassionate, loving persons. And therefore, may we continue to model the caring made real that exists here and can be made stronger day by day, action by action. May it be so.